What's up, and welcome to episode 169 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and I'm joined as always by my main man, Woody V. What's happening, mate?
Birthday week for you, man. How was it?
Thank you. It was good. Yeah, it was nice day on Saturday with the family, and ended up having a barbecue and watching NBL 1 as you do. And then yesterday was working doing my commentary which was great, seeing Sydney Comets and getting to meet Dave O'Hickey and all that sort of stuff. So maybe I'll talk a bit about that later. But no, it was a good birthday.
Man. I'm doing well as well. Thanks for asking.
Nah, for sure. I'm just getting closer to 50 now, Woods. It's starting to kick in a little bit now, but it's all good. You're only as old as you feel, right? Nice.
Still making it rain from beyond the 3-point line, bro, at this age.
Tell you what, having a ring out the front and practicing often definitely has worked well for me. So, nice one. Well, we're looking forward to kick it with you this week, Woods. A lot to talk about. We're going to sort of recap the conference finals, talk about the NBA finals, which is due to start in a few days, and then another couple of bits of news that have sort of trickled in over the last few days as well. So just a reminder, as always, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you find your audio podcasts. And as we do every week, my man, let's start off with some jerseys. I can see what you're doing this week.
Yeah, got a fitting one. So
nice.
Let me just stand up.
Woods to stand up, rocking the Adelaide 36ers, number 24, my favourite number, Montrezl Harrell, with a nice Lakers hat to boot. So yeah, that's a nice looking jersey, that one.
The white one, the away one. Look, Montrezl Harrell, as Felix von Hoff likes to call it. But we just got the news of him re-signing with Adelaide earlier this week. So let me just quickly go through a few things about him. Montrezl Harrell, right? Born on Australia Day, right? In North Carolina back in 1994. Went to college at Louisville and then had an 8-year NBA career with the Houston Rockets, Los Angeles Clippers, Los Angeles Lakers, Washington Wizards, Charlotte Hornets, Philadelphia 76ers. He's currently playing in Puerto Rico after having his first season in the NBL with the Adelaide 36ers. And obviously that relationship he has with Bryce Cotton played a big part in him re-upping and signing with the Adelaide 36ers this year. And at 6'7", he's forged a pretty good NBA career. Won the 6th Man of the Year one year as well. But having that, he's a bit of a tweener. He's not quite a center, not quite a power forward, right? At 6'7", he's undersized, doesn't stretch the floor, but he's made the most of his gifts, right? Yeah.
Well, firstly, Woods, is there anyone that's not playing in Puerto Rico at the moment? Because pretty much every player I hear of either playing in Puerto Rico.
They pay well there.
No, you're right. I mean, look, 8-year NBA career, as you said, and it was a bit of a journeyman bouncing around across teams there. But yeah, he's made the most of his skills there. He's he may be a little bit undersized, but he's a massively strong guy. Plays with that aggression, a bit of an intimidation factor as well. So, look, I know we were both really excited to have him here last year, and I know we both really enjoyed watching him as well. He was doing stuff that would just make me laugh in the games. Some of the stuff he'd do and everything like that, and just revving up the crowd and flexing and stuff. And it was quite fun to watch. So, was it a 1-year deal he signed?
One-year deal, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably what he'll be getting at this stage, yeah.
I think you made a really good point there. It's about he's worth the price of admission. We want characters in this league. Like having his name and his signature to come and play in the NBL last year was great for the league as a whole. Got more eyes on it. So I think we're going to see a lot more big names follow over the coming years as well on the back of guys like Montrezl Harrell coming in.
Agreed. Right? And I think Adelaide are going to be one of those teams that every time they're on the road this year that, the fans are going to want to go and see them. I've already said to you, I'm definitely going when they come and play Sydney this year. I'd love to see that game. Obviously, Bryce will be strange seeing it, but just to see Trez, obviously they've got another import spot they'll likely get. There's, rumours we've been talking about today, like, Boogie Cousins or, there was, who knows?
Matt Hurd, Gary.
Yeah, I don't know where they're getting this money from. I reckon I heard Olgun Ulich say
Gary Clark. I
think he's signed overseas now, but they're saying they might be the first team to spend over $4 million as well. So they're definitely swinging for it this year. But yeah, they're going to be a must team to watch. And yeah, no, it's a better place it is in our league, right? I've enjoyed having them there. And a bit of a Lakers hat. Anything about that, or that was just you like the colours and that?
No, I just thought I'd change it up a little bit. Yeah.
I know I've asked you before, but do you have a hat of every 30 teams?
25 or 26, I think I've got. So pretty close.
Who's sticking out that you don't
Pacers, I don't have.
Pacers, wow.
Which I'm going to get one. Sacramento Kings, I don't have.
Utah.
Yeah, I don't have one.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I've
got New Orleans. Oh. Yeah, so...
Make that your mission this year, maybe, to clear the slate and have all 30 teams. That'd be cool. But All right, nice. Appreciate that one. Well, I was decided I'd rock an old school one today. Kind of, I think this is probably the noughties era, and it's a really nice colour. So you can see it's a Denver Nuggets jersey. Bit of a random player, someone with a bit of a link to our favourite team. So I'll stand up and show you who I'm
I know
rocking
who it
today.
is. I know who it is. For those who can't see, Robbie's wearing the Denver number 8 Danilo Gallinari jersey, and
I guess you were thinking Carmelo, were you?
No, I was thinking Gallinari straight
He was
away,
thinking
right?
that. You know me well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny thing was, I realised I hadn't worn this one because it still had the tags inside, and I've probably had this, I don't know, 12 years. It's just been sitting in the Adidas jersey coming to the right of me. But yeah, some nice colours on this one. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about Gallo there. You know, like picking the random one. So it's a blue Adidas Denver Nuggets jersey. So the Italian played 14 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted by the Knicks at pick 6 in the 2008 draft. So this was the pretty good draft. Woods with Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love, etc. Played with the Knicks, Nuggets, Clippers, Thunder, Hawks, Pistons, and Bucks. And he last played in the NBA last year, so he's not that far out of the game. So he's now 36. Randomly enough, he's playing third division basketball in Italy at the moment. So I think he's one of these guys that probably just wanted to keep playing. I'm sure there's some old, childhood friends that are on that team or something else like that. So imagine he'd be pretty handy in Division 3 basketball in Italy, I would have thought. So, someone I always enjoyed the way he played. Big 6'10" forward there, had that long career, as I mentioned. Didn't really have a lot of accolades that I sometimes talk about with these players, but he put up some solid numbers. So career scoring average of 14.9 points, which is pretty impressive. So nearly career average of 15 a game. It was only 4 years ago with our Hawks, and I really remember watching this one live, that he put up 38 points, and he was 10 of 12 three-pointers in a win against Boston. So I really remember him watching that, and just caught fire. And with his size as well, he was so hard to, you put a defender on him, he'd just jump up and be able to get the shot over him there. So a little bit of a trip down memory lane with Gallo there. What are your thoughts? What team do you remember him on? Give me some thoughts on the Italian.
Definitely that Denver team, right? That George Karl Denver team was the sum of its parts, was better than, having an individual superstar. A bit like that Indiana team right now that really band together to succeed. And Danilo Gallinari had his best years. I think you look at that team, I think, what did they have back then? They had Andre Miller, Kenneth Fareed.
J.R. Smith, probably.
Ty Lawson maybe, Evan Fournier, those guys. Just a great team. And I just remember he was drafted from at New York, and it took a while for him to really find his feet and become a quality NBA player. And those years in Denver really showed that new age type of guy who could stretch the floor. 6'10", I think you said he was he?
Yeah, 6'11", I think. Oh, yeah, 6'10", yeah.
Yeah.
I think Woods, he was, I think the New York crowd booed him when he got drafted, and I think they were still remembering Andrea Bargnani getting drafted, and perhaps it was like, oh, no, not another European sort of big sort of, white guy sort of thing. But, yeah, had a really good career. He was, of course, in that Carmelo trade, wasn't he? That's how he got to Denver, and Carmelo got to New York there. But yeah, someone I was always quite fond of there. I was quite pleased when he ended up on the Hawks. I was looking at those teams now to see where I remember. I definitely remember him quite a bit with the Clippers. He had some good sort of times there, and with the Wizards as well. He sort of put up some decent numbers. Don't remember him with the Bucks. Do you? Bucks.
He played last year with the Bucks, didn't he?
Yeah, that's why, right? Yeah, when they were sort of looking for.
I think it was 6 or 7 years at Denver. That was his most long tenure.
Probably
right?
the longest one, right? So nice jersey, this one. Like the colours. It actually fits me, which is unlike a few of my jerseys in this day. I don't know, a few too many burgers for me, I think. But liking this one. And I thought I'd keep the trip down memory lane. So almost someone of a similar era there, Woods, and you're not going to be expecting this one. So as you know, I'm trying to get an autograph card of anyone that's played for the Atlanta Hawks. So there's some deep dives there, some random players. So today I'm showing a 2007 and 2008 top Stadium Club beam team. So remember the top Stadium Club, Woods, of none other than Speedy Claxton.
Sick.
Look at that for a nice card, right? So real nice look. And that was actually an insert card back in 2007, 2008. So Speedy Claxton. I was looking him up before sort of thing. So he was someone that played for a few teams, started with Philly, then played with the Spurs where he won a championship, Warriors, Hornets, and obviously Hawks. Currently the head coach of his alma mater, Hofstra University. I think he donated money to them to build a stadium. He was an assistant coach and now a head coach there. But didn't have a long career, had a few injuries and stuff like that. But give me a deep dive. What were some thoughts on Speedy Claxton?
I just loved his game, especially with that Spurs lineup against the New Jersey Nets back then, Jason Kidd and those guys, and Greg Popovich called on Speedy Claxton in that final series, right?
Yeah.
And he had some amazing games, right? Coming off the bench, backing up Tony Parker when he was in a foul trouble.
Yeah.
And those were his standout moments. He actually got paid after that, right? And they kind of just fizzled out. But
Yeah.
if you look back, I think it would have been 2002, 3 circa with the Spurs, that championship.
I think it was the 2003 chip, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right
Yeah.
there.
And this is what we do on the show. Once we take deep dives and we show people like Speedy, Claxton. But it was one of those things, I was looking for an old Hawks card today and flicking through them. Like, you know what? It's actually a really nice looking card. They've got the hologram bit on the side. It was an insert card, these Beam Team ones, which they've been doing for quite a while there. So, yeah, Speedy, Claxton, Atlanta Hawks auto card. So, nice random one there, right? Before we get into it, is my computer any better today? Because I know it's going to be... Okay, cool. There's been a lot of people saying, what is going on with your computer? We're trying to work out the bottom of it. I don't think it's definitely not internet related. What do you think? It could be a RAM issue. I think it could be a fan issue, but so far so good. So hopefully it continues. And I do apologise for if it has been a bit sketchy the last
I don't know
couple
what
of
you did
weeks,
during the week to fix it, man. Did you do something?
No, I didn't. No. Maybe it's just luck of the draw. Fingers crossed it stays good. Okay. But look, we've got a lot to talk about, Woods, and of course we're going to start with the NBA playoffs. So the conference finals finished yesterday. So we're recording this one Monday, the 2nd of June. We're probably going to get this out on the Wednesday this week, so plenty of time before that game one Friday Australian time. So a bit of a long wait. It's going to be strange, Woods. Our work productivity might go up over the next few days before these games start. But yeah, I thought we'd maybe just start off with sort of each conference final there. Maybe let's start off with the one that finished the earliest there. So as we sort of expected and we said on last week's episode, OKC ended up finishing off the Wolves in a gentleman's sweep, winning 4-1. And let's face it, a very one-sided series. And even the game that Minnesota won was one-sided, so very random series there. Look, obviously, OKC, we'd probably both, be tipping them to win. We'll talk about that later. But I thought we'd look at it quickly from a Wolves point of view, right? A funny one for them, right? They've now lost back-to-back Western Conference finals, and they've lost them both 4-1, which I don't know how you look at that. Is that a failure? Is that a success? I mean, look, they've got through to the last two in a really tough and competitive conference, so that was the first thing that came to mind for me. But how will you sort of look back at Minnesota, again, losing 4-1 in the conference finals? Is this a failure? Is this good? What are your thoughts on that?
Firstly, you talk about the Minnesota teams with Kevin Garnett. There was a long period where they had no playoff action, right? So for that ball club to make 2 consecutive conference finals, they got to be pretty happy with where they are at the moment, right? They've got the brightest young talent in the league in Anthony Edwards, right? After trading Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, they went back to the promised land and got to the conference finals. So overall, they should be happy. They're well coached. The one area where I think they can really, really improve is, I talked about playmaking and Anthony Edwards' ability as a playmaker a little bit more and how he's improved, right? But you really want him playing off the ball, right? Playing him on the wings, and you want a point guard there, someone who can really set the table and be a bit of a playmaker for them. Mike Conley's been washed for the last 2 years, basically, right?
Yeah.
We've seen him literally, he's getting older and older, and that is a glaring hole in that team, right?
He shouldn't be starting at this stage of his career, should
Absolutely not. And you got Rob Dillingham, a former lottery pick from last year, who's just waiting in the wings to get that opportunity. So I think it's not about getting someone externally, but maybe Mike Conley can stay on the bench there and come and play some spot minutes, and Rob Dillingham can get some more responsibility next year under the tutelage of Mike Conley. So I think that's an area where they can improve in that point guard position. But the nucleus is good, and Anthony Edwards just got to keep going from strength to strength. You saw his interview, that press conference afterwards. He said, I'm not disappointed. I'm 23. I've been to 2 conference finals in a row, right? I'm ready to come back next year. So, yeah.
It's still a decent effort, isn't it? And we talk about how competitive that Western Conference is. I mean, so many good teams there that have gone nowhere near making the conference finals. The 2 LA teams, Golden State, Houston was so good this year. Your Phoenixes, Denver over the last couple of years. So, yeah, it is definitely a good effort. I do agree, though. I think they need to strengthen the playmaker there. And, perhaps keep Conley if he wants to stay. He'd make a great backup and someone who can contribute in a final series, but... Yeah, it's just...
There's a team option there for Conley next year, so I think he is coming back,
What can they potentially give up to get him? It was funny, after making that huge trade, they ended up in exactly the same position as last year. And sometimes you've got to sort of think, look, OKC was, by far the standout team in the West, so maybe it's not a bad thing to still make the... But you've always got to try and, work on your team there, and you're right. Dillingham, that Terrence Shannon showed a couple of signs.
Absolutely.
So there's some young pieces there, I think, to work on. So, nice. Well... Not the greatest series. I think we both sort of said that. I think it was 1 close game out of the 5, and then a lot of blowouts, right? So, OKC are going to end up having a full 7-day break before the game starts on Friday, which is I think they had the same in the second round as well, didn't they? So pretty good for them. Look, the other series was a lot more fun to watch, I thought. It only went one extra game. It was 4-2 the Pacers way there. But yeah, what were your thoughts on that? I was thinking back on this one, thinking how crucial that big first game was, right? When New York basically gave up that lead.
Absolutely.
Halliburton sent the Pacers into overtime and they won. Had that not happened, it might have been a different story. But let's do the same thing and maybe talk a bit about the Knicks. So going down 4-2, decent effort.
Decent effort, right? And as I said on last week's show, if the Knicks, you'd given that to the Knicks at the start of the season, they would have taken it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to double down on what I said last week. If the Knicks want to go to the promised land, they need a change in coach, right? I mean, you look at guys like Shamet, who are playing too late, right?
Yeah.
You look at guys like Mitchell Robinson, who made an impact. In that series, defensively, the Knicks struggled, right? And Mitchell Robinson was terrific, getting second chances for the Knicks and getting on the offensive glass and Shamet making an impact. Now, if a guy like Tibbs had put faith in them earlier in the season, they'd come here more ready to play. So, and I talked to some Knicks fans. Jimmy, a good friend of the show, and he echoes my thoughts in terms of they need to move on from Tibbs. But they should be pretty proud of their achievement this year.
And look, they won't, firstly, will they? Because he did make it to the conference finals. I think you're right. He is copying a little bit of criticism. I thought it was strange that he suddenly started playing people in those games. It was almost like he got a tap on the shoulder from above saying, play right, play Shamet, these sort of things, where he hadn't been doing that. I want to ask you maybe just a couple of quick guys. I thought Bridges was a little bit disappointing. We know they gave up a lot to get him. He was decent in the round before, wasn't great in this. Didn't think Brunson was at his best as well in that series. But what were your thoughts on maybe those two guys?
I mean, Mikal Bridges wasn't playing. Like, Tibbs was taking him out of the rotation and throwing other guys out there, right?
Didn't they give up like 10 draft picks to get him or something?
Yeah, and I mean, look, he's been a disappointment all year. Let's be fair. I mean, when they got him, right?
Yeah.
They would have expected more from him. I mean, he has had his moments in the earlier rounds of the playoffs. He was good. But look, I mean, I would stick with this nucleus, right? Not change too much. What have you heard? I mean, I've heard through the grapevine that they're really considering letting go of Tibbs, right?
Really? Yeah. Look, it wouldn't ultimately shock me, but then I think that they might sort of sit down. We know they're not the biggest spending team, James Dolan and that sort of stuff. Maybe they'll say, look, hang on, he did lead us to our first conference finals in, 25 years or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know who else is out there that perhaps they want maybe a younger coach. I thought he did a reasonable job though, Tibbs, with what he had there. They did have a good lineup. I actually did pick him to win it this year, so I wasn't surprised they went as far as they did. But yeah, he does have some coaching sort of.
So Robbie, I just typed Tom Thibodeau into Google, and the first article that came up was Tom Thibodeau resurrected the Knicks, but firing him might be the only way to get to the next level, right? So there is food
saying that New York media would. They could have made the NBA Finals and lost 4-3, and the media still would have said that. But I agree. I think it's a good point. Maybe that's something they do need to consider. It would maybe seem a little harsh, wouldn't it, if they
absolutely
got that far? And I think maybe another team would take a gamble on him. I don't think he's someone, if he did get sacked now, he wouldn't get another role. He's a hard-working coach and gets the best out of his players. But yeah, look, I think ultimately it was a success for New York. I mean, they were. It's funny that them and Minnesota both got knocked out at this stage after making that major trade before the season. The Randall Cat trade, that was such an interesting one for me, with two of my favourites there. But look, I enjoyed watching him. I like seeing basketball being back in New York and being popular, so that was a big thing. Great crowds there, those block parties they were doing and stuff. I think, like I've said a few times, it's all better for the league, isn't it?
I think what you said about that first game, being up by 12-14 with a few minutes left and losing it. It was hard to come back from there. And defensively, the Knicks were really poor after that game, right?
Yeah.
And just, shout out to Indiana, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, mentioned the New York being such a big market team. So the NBA probably would have loved like a New York Knicks versus Lakers final or a Boston versus Golden State. Well, they're not getting that at all. They're getting something completely different. So maybe one of the biggest, not the wrong word, but one of the more small market finals matchups we've seen in a while. So that's, of course, Indiana taking on OKC there. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about this with you, Wood. So the 7-game series starts on Friday, our time, as we mentioned. Game 2 is on Monday, which is a public holiday for some of the eastern states there due to good old King Charles. So thanks, Chuck, for that. So we actually get to watch a game live and proper there. Yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about this one today, right? So, firstly, my thoughts. I'd love to see a long series, Woods. I really would. We both have been a little bit critical of the playoffs. I know some people haven't always agreed with us. I don't think it's been the best playoffs. I'm not sure we're going to get the greatest or most competitive final series here, right? OKC are they're so good, right? That's obviously a little bit of an understatement there, but they won. I think it was 18 more games. Yeah, they won 18 more regular season games than Indiana. Fun fact as well, Woods, OKC also had more road wins this year than the Pacers had home wins. So that kind of shows you the difference between these teams, right? So we'll give our prediction at the end, but just wanted to go through a couple of key little sort of areas there. So. Give me some thoughts on what you think the coach battle is here. So I reckon two pretty solid coaches in this. Do you give any advantage to either team, or do you think that both teams have got pretty good people at the helm there?
I mean, Carlisle's got the experience, right? He's doing really well with this Pacers team, and obviously, man for man, they if you look at both rosters, right? OKC have got more strength there, right? But a guy like Carlisle has got all the X's and O's. He knows how to play the strategic game in a 7-game series. So in terms of coaching, I think the experience there will go to Carlisle. But the cattle that OKC have is stronger, right?
You can see Carlisle doing stuff like working the refs early, coming out that, Halliburton's not getting any respect and doing these sort of things. He'll play that veteran sort of card there. I think for Mark Dagnall, he's still probably that guy you could walk past at your local shopping centre and you wouldn't even think it was, an NBA head coach. I've said before, he definitely reminds me a little bit of John Stockton to look at. There's something sort of about him there. But yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty even there. It's not like you can say, one coach is massively better than the other. Carlisle is, a really highly respected coach. What about the benches there? I feel like both benches are pretty deep. I think OKC does have one of the more deeper benches in the league, and especially for the fact that they've got such a good defensive bench. Guys like Caruso, guys like Wallace, Isaiah Joe can defend, Kenrich Williams. They've got some guys that can really come on and play D. Do you give a decent advantage to OKC for the benches?
Yeah, I mean, the Pacers have got a good bench. You got Ben Shepherd, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin. These guys coming in, right? It's Benedict Mathurin, right? You're going to have two pretty strong benches, and both coaches are going to rely on their benches, which, New York, you don't see much of their bench getting on, or Denver, and other teams don't rely on their bench strength that much, go with a 7-8 man rotation, whereas these two teams will go 10 deep, and you'll see few more storylines coming out of this series because more guys are going to play, right? You might have a Speedy Claxton found in this series, right?
Maybe someone will make a name for himself. Look, someone like a Nemhard or something, he's been a little bit down. I think he could be someone that could be a bit of an X factor for them.
Defensively, man, Nemhard has been ridiculous, right? His shot started to fall down in that last game versus New York. 6 steals, Man, I expect big things from him in this series, right?
Yeah, he could be an important one. How do you see the bigs going in this? Obviously, OKC are a massive team. They've got the big German Hartenstein, and they've got Chet Holmgren, just two massive humans there. Pacers aren't as big. Miles Turner, I think, was pretty solid in that series against New York, and he's always a pretty consistent, solid player. But they've got a massive size advantage, don't they?
Absolutely. That's what I wanted to talk about in terms of defensive rating in the playoffs. Miles Turner is 1 or 2 amongst all players, right?
Yeah.
Throughout the playoffs. How long do you think Miles Turner has been at the Indiana Pacers?
It's got to be 9 seasons or something.
A decade, right? This guy's the longest tenured player for the Pacers. He often doesn't get spoken about much, so I just wanted to mention him and the job he's done defensively. The Pacers have been funneling a lot of the, offenders straight to the paint, where Miles Turner is doing a great job of protecting the rim. But as you said, now he's got a real challenge because he's going to go up against the Twin Towers, Chet, Isaiah Hartenstein there, right? And I think they're going to have to rely on Tommy Bryant and who else have they got? They've got another center on that bench. They got Tony Bradley, right? There? Yeah, right. I mean, those guys are going to have to play a little bit to match against the bigs.
Maybe,
Yeah, they need some big bodies, right?
That does seem a big advantage, doesn't it?
Massive. Just to saying those names, Tony Bradley and Tommy Bryant, right?
Yeah. Well, let's maybe talk about the 3 superstars, right? So, and look, I think Jalen Williams, he was an All-NBA player and an All-NBA defender, which we'll talk about soon. How do you see Jalen Williams' role in this series?
J-Dubs just quietly goes about his business, right?
He'll have a couple of 30-point games in this series.
You won't even see that he's got that 30 points. He'll impact the game in different ways. And you look at that's a 1-2 punch, Shea and J-Dub, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the Pacers, they got Tyrese Halliburton, and then a bunch of guys who can all contribute on any given day, right? But you've got 2 All-Stars there on that team. I think he'll contribute well. And you want to talk about the 2 guards, right?
Let's talk about maybe SJ first. I want to talk about it more from a Pacers point of view. You mentioned Nemhart. You think he's an improved defender there. Have they got anyone that can really slow him down, or do you just see him just getting his numbers every game?
I think someone like Nemhard can make him earn it, right?
What about your other mate, Neesmith? Right?
Yeah, Neesmith, Nemhard. You could throw either of those guys on. They're great wing defenders, right? And I mean, to be fair, the idea would be let him get 30 points, but maybe he takes 20 plus shots to get there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, make his efficiency go down, sort of thing.
correct.
Yeah. On the other point of view, though, I'm pretty worried about Halliburton. They've locked him up a couple of times. I'll talk about the regular season results soon, but I just feel like they've got so many options they can try to him. Look, they might start with Lou Dort. If it doesn't work with Lou Dort, they'll put Caruso on him. If that doesn't work, they can put Wallace on him. J-Dub could play some time, and they want a bigger guy on him. They literally have 5 guys they can throw at Halliburton.
You say Casson Wallace, yeah?
Yeah, of course. I think Wallace might be their best defender.
Man, you just mentioned Caruso, J-Dub, Dort.
Yeah,
Wallace.
It's
These
amazing,
are all world defenders, all on the one
have
team.
A go, sort of thing, and just they all offer something a little bit different, don't they? There. So I think Halliburton's in for a tough series. He's had a really good playoffs to date. This is going to be a massive challenge for him. Shout out to Pascal Siakam as well for winning that Eastern Conference MVP. And there's a few footage of Halliburton almost walking up thinking you get it, sort of thing. I was looking at that. It was almost 50-50, wasn't it? I know Siakam won it pretty easy. It's a bit of a dumb award anyway. I remember last year Jaylen Brown won it and people thought Tatum should have won it for the Eastern Conference MVP. But yeah, what's your thoughts? Do you see Halliburton getting off and doing what he's doing? Because he's been so efficient. He never gets turnovers. His percentages have been pretty decent. But you think he's in for a tough time?
It's going to be a lot harder, right? Obviously he did go up against Bridges and Hart and guys like that who are good defenders, right?
Yeah.
So he's still going to get his. I think the best way to look at it is if you take a step back and look at these two guards, right? The ascension of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Tyrese Halliburton, they're not the guys who want the shoe deals and be in the TV commercials and stuff, right? No, but they're great, right? And you talk about the markets they're coming from, Indiana and OKC, right? So microcosm, they're from small markets, right?
Yeah.
And those two leaders of those teams, their personalities actually are tied in with that small market mentality, right?
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to see here is two guys, just unassuming, right? Stars going up against each other.
Stars, aren't they?
Very likable. And back to your question about Tyrese Halliburton, I still think he's going to be efficient. He's going to do well, right?
Okay.
But is that going to be enough, right? Is that going to be enough? But yeah, having a guy like Dort on him is not going to make his life easy. I agree.
And maybe someone like Mathurin is an X factor there because look, you obviously got Siakam and Halliburton. There's that Miles Turner's probably still the third best player, but Mathurin might be that one that could get 20 plus in a couple of games there. So he might be that big X factor. Look, we mentioned all those defenders for OKC. They can't guard everyone, right? There's going to be someone that still gets there for the Pacers.
Tell me one thing. You told me that in the regular season, Halliburton got shut down by the OKC and their defenders. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I'll tell you a little bit about that, right? So, they played obviously twice in the season, East versus West. So, they played in December and they played in March. So, in December, they played in Indiana. OKC didn't have Chet Holmgren or Caruso. Thunder ended up winning, actually breaking a 5-game win streak by the Pacers, winning 120 to 114. So, not much defense there. SJ in that game had 45 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists. And Tyrese Halliburton had 4 points. He did have 8 assists, but 4 points. So SJ scored 41 more points in that game. Neesmith didn't play for the Pacers. Thunder sort of really closed out that game well there. Both teams had pretty good percentages, as you'd expect, with such a high-scoring game there. And OKC only had 3 turnovers, which I thought was I did almost double-check that was right. In terms of the rematch there, so that was in March, so, not that long ago there. So OKC were on an 8-game win streak going into it and had won 15 of 16. They dominated the second and third quarter, scoring 73 in those 2 points. Ended up with another big score, so 132 to 111. So in 2 games, they've scored 132 and 120. So that's a lot of points. Obviously, we know scoring goes down in the finals there, but that's a bit of a concern for Indiana's ability to defend them there. OKC also got a lot of points in the paint in that game in OKC as well. So, I don't know. You sort of read those, and I'm like, a little bit worried about, can Indiana keep OKC under 110? You'd have to wonder that, wouldn't you?
I mean, those numbers from Halliburton were also quite concerning, right? But obviously, that's only a small sample size, 2 games in the regular season.
And Halliburton wasn't playing as good back last year.
No.
He had a slower start to the year.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's give some predictions, Woods. I have a feeling we're both going to pick. Maybe not, actually. You go first. So what's your prediction?
4-1. OKC.
Same with me. Gentleman sweep. Look, I did consider a sweep, and maybe it's been more hopeful. I think it might be 4-1. I'd say maybe more likely Indiana wins that game 3. So, OKC take care of business at home. Indiana go back. That crowd will be, buzzing. They're a pretty great home crowd there. They might get game 3, and then OKC will just have too much from there.
I reckon if you ask 10 religious basketball fans what their prediction would be for this series,
Yeah.
8 or 9 of them would say 4-1.
You don't mind the punt occasionally, Woods. Do you know any idea what the odds would be for something like this? I imagine it would be. Maybe you can quickly check that because I'd just be curious to know. I mean, this would have to be one of the more short price favourites we'd seen for ages. Maybe Indiana might be like a $1.20 to win or something else like that. Look, like I mentioned as well, Indiana won 18. Sorry, OKC won 18 more games in the regular season, which is a staggering difference there, right? So, Woody's just checking that now, but yeah, I mean, I don't know many people apart from a die-hard Pacers fan that would give them even a slight chance in this series.
Okay. 420 and 190.
Wow, okay, interesting. 190. So nearly 2-1 for. Interesting. You sure it's that high? $1.90? That's not American odds, is it? Where they do those weird
Head-to-head line. Oh, that's just for the game. Sorry.
Ah, okay, just for the
That's
game.
just for the game. My apologies.
Even that seems like decent odds. So
Yeah.
maybe put some hard in on that.
Oh, no, it's 1.9 for the line and 1.24 for head-to-head.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so it's 1.24 for Oklahoma City and 4.2 for...
So $1.24. Look, that seems about right to me, Woods. A
Yep.
team that's, this will be an amazing season, wasn't it? Say they do what we expect. SJ MVP. We had, a couple of guys in the all-defensive team, a couple of guys in the all-NBA team. They've got all this young talent. They've got draft picks. They've got Sam Presti. They've got Dagnall. It's
Yep.
pretty good if this all comes ahead. But look, games aren't won on paper, and everything can be sort of thrown out now. It's a best of 7. I kept saying all along 4 more wins for OKC, but you never know. I would kind of secretly love to see the Pacers win one of those first 2 games and just make it a little bit interesting there, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, as we've said, it's been a little bit underwhelming this playoffs.
A little
Give us some
bit,
excitement, right?
Yeah, that's it. So, all right, nice one, Woods. Well, we'll go through a bit of a quick hits now. I've got some interesting stuff. So I should have teased at the start. We're going to own up to our season predictions, which is always fun. Woods doesn't kind of really remember or know what we've gone there, so I'll tell you how we stood there. But before I go through that, we didn't talk about the all-defensive teams last week. We sort of talked about some of the other awards. So I'll just read the first scene out to you, Woods. You can give some thoughts there. So the first NBA all-defensive team. So I'll read this out in order of how many votes they had as well. So Evan Mobley, Dyson Daniels, Lou Dort, Draymond Green, and Amen Thompson. Any complaints with that? Any surprises?
Ivica Zubac, I'd have him in that first team, maybe ahead of him and Thompson.
True. Well, he had the most points in the second team, so I'll read through that. So, yeah, big Zoo. Jaren Jackson Jr., which was surprising. Some people were talking about him being all-defensive player, maybe even halfway through the season there. Jalen Williams, who we mentioned, so great effort for him to make the second team. Your boy, Tumani Kamara.
Oh, man, that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
And that was a bit of a deep dive one, right? A lot of these players are from, well-known players, playoff teams. In fact, he's probably the only player there, apart from Dyson Daniels, the teams that didn't make the playoffs. And Rudy Gobert rounding it out. But give me some thoughts on Kamara.
Let me say to you, like when we did that, we did a feature on Tristan Da Silva and Tumani Kamara this year, right, on the show,
Yep,
right? And you came to me and you said, Woody, give us a fun fact. Tell me something to expect from Tumani Kamara. Do you remember what I said?
Maybe you picked an all-defensive second.
Future all-defensive selection.
It came quickly. Have you bought his jersey yet? What's going on?
No, I'm gonna get one, right? I'm gonna get one for sure. But yeah,
Nice.
look, I didn't expect it to come this early, but like the impact that he's had on that Portland team, he's a fantastic player,
Great
right?
sign.
Yeah.
I honestly think Portland's going to be pretty exciting. I know that's
Hell
a
yeah.
story for another day, but next year I think they could
Hell
be a
yes.
team to watch here. I like some of the talent.
I don't have a Portland hat.
Ooh, wow. That'd be a nice one too. I like their colours,
Portland,
so
Utah. I can't remember the other two.
maybe you can get that Kamara jersey and a Portland hat. There's a bit of a combo there. So, all right. Well, as I mentioned, our season predictions. So we did these way back, episode 139 last October. So it feels like a long time ago, right? We've kind of kept the same categories the last few years. I think we'll probably continue to do that. So I'll just go through these, right? So MVP. We both had Luka, so we're both on the same page there. Obviously, SGA won that. So, I don't think Luka was a bad pick at the start of the year. We thought he'd be hungry after that, finals defeat last year, and we didn't obviously expect that crazy trade to happen there.
Exactly.
But, yeah, so we're obviously
No
wrong
one
on
would
that
have
one.
thought that would have transpired,
No one
right?
would have,
So,
right?
yeah.
No. All NBA. So I think you've had another good year for that. I think you might have had all 5 last year. So this year you had 4. So obviously we both had Luka in our All NBA, and he didn't make it. So the actual team was SGA, Donovan Mitchell, which neither of us had, Tatum, Giannis, and Joker. So you had 4 of those. You had SGA, Tatum, Giannis, and Joker. So good effort, Woods. I think they were the 4. Second year in a row they've been there, right?
Yep.
I had SGA, Giannis, and Joker. I even said on my notes I wanted to do one different to last year, and I had Ant Edwards over Tatum, so I don't think that was too bad a one, right? That wasn't a bad prediction there. So at the moment, that means you're winning 4-3 if we're keeping score at home. Okay, so finals and winner. So we both had OKC to make the finals, which I thought was a decent effort there. We both had them losing, surprisingly. You had Boston beating them, and I had New York beating them. So at least I was close enough for New York. So obviously OKC playing Indiana with the score to be confirmed there.
And that Tatum injury would have probably meant that Indiana wouldn't have made it.
So I was saying that they were about to be down 3 games down when he had that injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. So conference finals, you did really well here. You had 3 of the 4 teams. So you had OKC playing Wolves, a great pick there, and then you had Boston against New York. So really good getting 3. I had 2, so I had New York beating Boston, OKC beating Dallas there. So yeah, pretty good effort. You're getting 3 out of 4.
No one would have got Indiana.
No, well, we'll talk about that now. So we did our East playoff top 6 right in order. So the actual order was Cleveland, Boston, New York, Indiana, Milwaukee, and Detroit. So none of us had any of those in order, surprisingly, out of the top 6. The bad ones for both of us were Philly, right? We both had Philly at 3. I know you were really high on them. What else did you have there? Well, you had Pacers at 5, so not a bad effort there, and Pacers were 4th. I didn't have the Pacers in my top 6, so as I said, none of us got those. In terms of the play-in in the Eastern order, it was Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, Miami. We both had 1 there, so you had Orlando picked in the right place. I had Atlanta picked in the right place. But as I said, I did have Indiana finishing 7th there, so not the greatest pick. I mean, you had them 5th, but yeah, 7th I was probably way off on that one there. In the West, look, we both had OKC finishing 1st. That was the only one we got exactly right. So the actual order was OKC, Houston, which no one would have had them coming 2nd, right? Yep. Lakers 3rd, then Denver, Clippers, Minnesota. One that stood out for me is a really bad one for you, and I might as well bring it up. Do you remember who that might have been? Someone you had really high. That I was kind of surprised when we did these predictions how high you had this team. Maybe it's to do with your NBL team. I don't know, but you had the Kings 3rd in the West, so you were really high on them. Obviously, that didn't quite work out there. I also had a bad one. I had Phoenix at 4th, so they were kind of our bad ones there. In fact, we had another bad one because we both had Pelicans finishing 6th, though we didn't expect them to have 1,000 injuries this year, and we were high on them, both of us, weren't we?
Even Sacramento, man, what are they doing, right?
Yeah.
Trading away, fucking
disappointing. And this is why we do this. Once we own up to our predictions, right? I'm sure there's other people that make these predictions and they're kind of embarrassed to do it. Well, I recommend anyone try and do it next season. It's a hard business to do to try and predict some of these things.
I just said a swear word out. I'm sorry to our viewers.
That's all right. We'll own up to it with these things. And then the play-in in order was Golden State, Memphis, Sacramento, Dallas. I had Golden State in order. You had Grizzlies in order. So what that means is you're currently 1 ahead of me, Woods. And what I can say is that we didn't get any other of our predictions right. So you won by 1. So well done. I think that was getting those all 4 conference finals, which was really good effort there. Was it all 4? No, 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4, and then
so
4 out of 5.
4, plus you had the extra one in the All-NBA. So maybe I got a bit too creative trying to put ants in there. But the other ones, some of these are kind of funny what we've got here. So this one made me laugh. We've done this each year, Woods. The Hawks win total, right? So they won 40. And how's this for a funny thing? You had them winning 39. I had them winning 41. So we split that. We're exactly 1 game apart. So we call that a tie. That was pretty cool. The scoring leader, obviously SGA won that. I had Ant Edwards, which I didn't think was a bad one. Do you remember who you had for this? Remember you were showing a lot of love for Philly at the start of the year.
Oh, Joel Embiid.
Yeah, Joel Embiid. So obviously that didn't happen with his injuries and everything else like that. Team with the biggest win increase. So that was always a cool stat to do. Look,
Memphis.
Detroit won this by a mile. So they went from 14 wins to 44. So a 30-win increase. We both had Memphis, right? So last year, the year before, they'd won 27. So Memphis was a good pick. They were in the 40s this year. But for a team to increase by 30, like Detroit did, I mean, that was remarkable there. I mean, that's as big an increase as I've seen for a long time.
Yeah.
We picked the team with the worst record. We both had Washington with that. We weren't far off. So Utah had 17, Washington had 18. So yeah, we were 1 off from that. We probably didn't know Utah were going to tank as much just to get the 8th pick in the draft or whatever they got there.
I actually didn't mind watching Washington games this year. Utah's a tough watch sometimes.
Yeah, Utah are a tough watch. Even though you love your boy, Collier, right?
Yeah.
You're a fan of him.
Love Isaiah Collier. Yeah.
Rookie of the year. So Steph Castle, of course, won it. I'm going to tell you this one. I had Zach Edey. You kind of scoffed at this when I said Zach Edey, right? You're like, Zach Edey, he was 3rd, so I don't think that was a bad one. Do you remember who you had?
Yeah, I know. I shouldn't have. Reed Shepherd, right?
Reed Shepherd.
Yeah.
So Reed Shepherd, for those that don't know, was on the Houston Rockets team this year. You probably wouldn't have seen him a lot because he barely made the court. But Reed Shepherd, look, that's not to say he's probably too early to call a bust, but he was someone that they couldn't even really play any minutes for in these playoff games.
Bro, you know what vibes I'm getting from him? Jimmy Fredette vibes.
Yeah, possibly.
Right?
I can kind of see that as well. Let's hope it's not that case. Look,
Yeah.
we'll give him another year. This time next year, we'll talk a little bit about Reed Shepherd, right? But sixth man of the year. Look, none of us I think would have got that. Peyton Pritchard won it there. I had Nas Reed. I think I said it was going to be called the Nas Reed Award after he won it the year before. Do you remember who you had?
No.
You had Jaime Haskins Jr., which was a random one.
Wow.
So, of course, there was a few random rumours coming out for maybe some off-court stuff in Miami. We're not sure. I'm not going to say what they are now. People can look that up. But maybe that's something that impacted his playing time, perhaps. And you know what I'm talking about there, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so
I do.
Yeah, he didn't quite win it. He's got some cool hair, though. I'll give him that. Coach of the year was Kenny Atkinson. Yeah, that was very well deserved. We didn't expect
absolutely.
Cleveland to have that many wins. I had Tibbs, so obviously it was high on New York for the preseason to pick that. You had Popovich there, so we obviously didn't know what was going to happen to Coach Pop there. So that would have been a decent prediction had he been healthy and had Wemby been
Shout
healthy.
out to Mitch Johnson, young coach coming in replacing Pop. Did a really good job with that team this year. Yeah.
True. Most improved players. So obviously Dyson Daniels won that. You went Cade Cunningham. That was a good pick. He was in that top three. I think he was maybe. I put my Homer hat on and had Jalen Johnson. And had he have not got injured again, he might have been someone that won it. So maybe I can pick him again next year.
Two really good picks actually, Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, they weren't
and
bad picks,
Johnson.
those ones.
Yeah.
Evan Mobley was Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, we both had Wemby, and look, Wemby would have won that had he have played enough games. And then we finished off with that one we do every year, Woods. You know what that one is, right?
Who plays the most games?
Yeah, who plays the most games out of Zion, Ben Simmons, or Kawhi Leonard? So you had Zion, and I had Zion. And last year Zion won it, and we were both quite a way off there. So Zion played the least. So Zion played 30. Kawhi played 37, and shockingly, Ben Simmons led the total with 51 games. So none of them played over 52 games. Yeah, Ben Simmons. So we both got that wrong, but I think that's a funny one. We might put that back next year. The way Zion's going as well with these off-court issues, he might not play many games at all next year.
I guarantee you that both of them played more minutes than Simmons did, though, in 37 games.
Minutes? Oh, I didn't quite think about that one. Yeah, well, maybe that's a stat for another day. But yeah, so no, that was fun. Woods, I always enjoy doing that. We do the same thing for the NBL each year. Shout out to you. You just picked me that with those, extra sort of, team sort of win ones. We didn't go that well on the actual individual awards. But look, they're pretty hard. I mean, who would have picked, Steph Castle or Peyton Pritchard or any of these sort of ones there? So, viewers and listeners, give it a go next season yourself and sort of see how you go at the end of the year. It's a fun exercise to do. And, as I said, we'll always own up to what we pick. So, Woody, he'll always have that Reed Shepherd, on his resume picking that. And who knows? Maybe it'll turn out it'll be good down the track. So, all right, appreciate that, Woods. We're just going to go to some true false now, right? And it's funny, the first one, I was actually going to show a card of this guy today, and truth be told, I couldn't find it, so that's kind of why I got the Speedy Claxton. But the guy I'm talking about is Milton Doyle. So true or false, Melbourne United have done very well signing Tassie Championship winner Milton Doyle.
True, I mean, I mentioned this
on
our group chat. He's a Vickerman type guy,
Yep.
He's just a basketball player. He makes the right decisions on the court, and he fits into the kind of system that Vickerman and also the culture in Melbourne, right? So I think he's perfect for that lineup.
I think true as well. I thought it was a good signing there. It's going to be a very different Tasmania team next year, isn't it? They've lost Jordan Crawford, they've lost Doyle, they've signed David.
Tell me about David Johnson. Who
I'll
is
tell
this
you
guy?
something funny. Was I collect these PSA rookie cards? I got a signed David Johnson card a few weeks ago for one of the cheapest ones I've ever bought. And I thought, I'm just going to buy it because it's cheap and I like the signed ones. And now he's been signed by Tassie, which is cool. So, yeah, swingman. He's been, I think, on Toronto's G League team. And, he's a young player. So I think it's probably not a bad get there. I think he's someone that does want to get back in the NBA. We've shown that the NBL is a good stepping stone for people to either get there or get back there now. So,
former second-round pick as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So not bad, and we'll see some of their other moves. We obviously know they've got Josh Bannon and Magno in the middle there, so I like what they've done with the local Aussie bigs there. But yeah, they've definitely got some spots to fill there, and they need old mate, I forget his name, the point guard.
Jordan Crawford. No, Sean McDonald.
Yeah, but they need him healthy because he's obviously a big part of it.
Jordan Crawford's they've parted ways with him as well.
Gone. I don't think we'll see him back in the NBL somehow. I'll keep it the NBL theme. 36ers are the early championship favourite, even more so after this Montrezl.
True, man.
Yeah.
No doubt. So stop saying give the king rings to the Kings, right?
I mean, mate, that Kings roster is pretty stacked, and we go through that one by one. I'm not going to read them out because I'll be here all day. But look, for me, they're both the championship favourites, and teams like Melbourne, Perth, and then the rest of them are kind of that level below at the moment. But look, there's still a lot of signings to be done. A lot of these NBL teams will be over at Summer League trying to get someone that just missed out on an NBA contract. But I think so far.
Let me ask you a quick question about that Adelaide team. You've got DJ Vasiljevic and Bryce Cotton, right?
Yeah.
Starting in the backcourt, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no true point guard there, right? So they're going to go in with the Bradley Beal, Devin Booker type point guard. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think we're both historians and people like that like a true point guard, right? So yeah, I agree. I mean, you need one of those like pass first type guys that maybe doesn't need to shoot a lot. So that's maybe a little bit of a concern, isn't it? But maybe there's room they can find, like a veteran out there. I'm not quite sure who, but yeah.
I'm sure they can manage, right? It's like people have to sacrifice. You got Isaac Humphries, Montrezl Harrell, the two that I just mentioned, and then you get another big time import, obviously, into the mix.
Could Flynn Cameron play the point full time? Maybe. I mean, he's someone that's kind of been forgotten a little bit about. I thought he was a great signing. He was like, wow, they got Flynn Cameron. They've lost a few people, and then they had Cotton and they had Harrell. So.
Probably can't push DJ up to the 3 spot or Bryce up to the 3 spot, right? So you're
those two are pretty set in their positions, right?
Yeah.
All right, nice. This one I know is up your alley because he's one of your favourites. So SJ will win 3 or more MVPs once his career's done.
False. It's just every year it's a tight one, man, right? Anyone could win it. Like,
you think you'll win another one at least, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. So
if you had said 2, I would have said yes.
Okay.
3, I'll probably say maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to say true. I think he'll win 3. I think maybe he'll win like a back-to-back next year. Maybe there's a year or 2 break, but I think he's still with that team. If they keep getting the team success, that seems to play a big part. So I'll say true on that one. That could be interesting. This one, I feel like we've done similar questions this before, but true or false, Patty Mills has played his last NBA game.
I would say true. I mean, he hung on to a few spots last couple of years at the end of the bench, right? I think all the talk about him potentially having interest in stake in the NBL is getting louder. And it makes logical sense for him, especially if he wants to potentially go to the World Cup and the Olympics to come and play meaningful minutes, right? Yeah.
Just to be something different, I'm going to say false and disagree with you. I think he's got one more season left.
Maybe.
I think, his wife's from the US, right? I think they're just about to have a baby. I don't know whether they're going to be wanting to come straight over here. And I've heard a few people say they don't know whether he's really aspiring to be in the NBL. He's played NBL before, right? He's got NBL on his resume. People that don't remember, check it out. He played for the Melbourne Tigers. I think they were still called back in the day. I've got a jersey somewhere. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets one more season. It might not be with the Clippers, where he finished last year. It might just be a team that sort of calls him up. We mentioned someone like Minnesota or someone Woods. They might call up and say, look, we're getting rid of another Aussie. We want to replace you, maybe, right? So I'm going to say maybe he gets one more year.
Who was his backcourt running mate in Melbourne? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Yinde Ubaka.
Oh, wow. That's going back a while. Yeah, nice. Oh, that was fun, Woods. Well, look, we've gone a little bit long, so we'll give Classic Packs a miss this week, right? We'll save that for next week.
Sure.
But yeah, look, really enjoyable show. I know we were looking forward to the final series. It starts to get a little bit sad, doesn't it? After the NBA is going to finish, June's still cool, right? You got the NBA finals, then you got the draft, and then free agency. But there's that little period, maybe the first or second week in July. It's like, oh, what's going on here? But never mind. We'll still be here. We'll have all the NBL previews before you know it. NBL will be here, right? And maybe before I give the quick outro, Woods, I'll talk a little bit about my time in NBL 1 this week. So I got to call the Hills Hornets against Sydney Comets. So really fun doing that. You know how excited I was. So Sydney Comets, all-star lineup there. They've got Obi Shea, former Adelaide 36er, Bawali Bales, and of course, the true finals MVP, Will Davo Hickey there. So look, my Hornets really stuck with them for a good, 2.5 quarters there, and just the class came through. Look, Davo was really good, but for me, it was Bawali Bales, the one that stood out. He's just, he's exciting to watch. He's pretty happy with himself, safe to say. He was celebrating every shot and everything like that, and a few people in the crowd were getting a bit annoyed, but he was fun to watch. I mean, he does that thing where he looks like he's going to drive, and he just takes a step back and just takes a long three. Talent-wise, he's absolutely an NBL player, and he's still very young as well, but you wonder whether maybe it's, I don't know, whether it's attitude or other things like that. But, he's won a championship with Sydney. I think he's someone that we could see back. And shout out to Will Davo Hickey Woods. So I just saw the photos. I got to meet him after the game. Really nice guy. It was actually really cool meeting him. He was so, I think excited's the right word. When he saw I had his Hawks jersey, he was really excited. He's like, wow, the novelty still hasn't worn off of him seeing his own jersey. And, shook hands with him, wished him best of luck because, of course, he's going over to the Summer League. And he was really sort of grateful. And, first thing my daughter said when, because she took a photo of him, she said, oh, he was so nice. So it's funny when you meet, I think I'm an old man now, so I wouldn't call him a hero, but someone we've both really admired and someone we both really like. We've both got his jerseys. We were onto this Dave O'Hickey thing early, so
way before anyone.
Way before anyone, right? And, getting to meet him and seeing he was a nice, humble guy, that's made me like him even more. So I wish him all the best success. So shout out to Dave O'Hickey for doing that. So.
Yep.
Nice.
And look, man, I'm really happy about that Summer League opportunity he got. I was saying, he deserves it with Tatum at the helm, and really hope he does well and does the country and his club proud over there at Summer League. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's hope so, right? So, all right, we'll get into a quick outro. So, as I mentioned, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be followed on X, Throwback Hoops. Look out for some Gallo jerseys, some Speedy, Claxton cards, all those cool things there. Instagram, throwback.hoops, and email address, throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Send us through any ideas you've got. As I mentioned, we'll have a little bit more time once the season finishes. Do you want to see us do maybe some basketball movie reviews like we've done before, or top 10 list? We haven't done a good top 10 list for a while. Maybe I'll think of a good one then to do. And of course, Patreon, if you want to pledge a few dollars, there's a lot of costs associated that we still pay. We're not making a cent on this podcast. We're still paying quite a bit. We love doing it, but if you want to support us anyway, we'd be appreciative of that. Floor's over to you, Woods. Give me some final thoughts.
Not much. Coming to the end of all the basketball. NBL's finished. The NBA's coming to an end. So just enjoy this final series, and hopefully we get a little bit more excitement than we have so far in the playoffs. Right?
Absolutely. Well, we'll be back probably in a week's time, and by then there would have certainly been the first two games. Maybe we could even look to record on that King's birthday after Game 2's been played. Woods, that's probably a good time to do it there. Sure. So we'll come back. We'll update that. I'd love to see maybe Indiana get an upset. I think we're probably both going for OKC. It's safe to say, but I just want to see a long series. I think if OKC win those first two games at home by 20 plus, it's going to be get the broom out basically. I don't even think that gentleman's sweep may even happen, but. No, looking forward to it. Thanks as always, Woods. It was great kicking it with you again.
You too, man.
Big peace out with Throwback Hoops.
Peace out.